Now that we've been talking about and thinking about the differences between physical places and virtual spaces, let's think a little bit more deeply and see how psychologically we perceive cyberspace. Now, when we think about cyberspace and starting out, we all start out on the same level when it comes to meeting other people virtually. There is a global democracy of the internet because no one knows anything about you if you choose not to tell them when you come online other than whatever name you've chosen for yourself. Usually when we meet each other in physical places, there are many things that we can use to form opinions about other people, from the way they dress to the way they look. We know that these things are not always accurate. They're based often on stereotypes that we have. And so when you go on the internet, a lot of those cues are lacking. There are a lot of lacking visual cues or other types of cues that we can use to form opinions about people. So we all start on a level playing field online. This sort of net democracy is a new way of experiencing life and something that we don't do when we're out in physical places. Another psychological aspect of cyberspace is the idea of social multiplicity. And social multiplicity tells us that we can multitask and juggle many relationships very efficiently. If you think about in the past, prior to the internet and prior to electronic culture, it was very difficult to multitask and juggle many relationships. But now we can communicate with multiple people at the same time. We're able to send an email while we're on the phone with somebody. You could even be on the phone with someone and be text messaging someone else on that same phone. If you've got a Bluetooth headset or if you've got other technology that allows you to do that, you're able to do that multiple people interaction simultaneously. And so just to throw back to earlier, what do we call it when consumers simultaneously use multiple media? We call that media use convergence. So we can use different types of media at the same time and juggle many relationships efficiently. The other aspect that can influence the way we communicate is recordability. And so think about any interaction you have with me through this class webpage or other interactions you have with people online. When we're using this technology, this digital technology in the electronic culture, we can record any of these messages. So think about how might your interaction on the phone be different from your interaction in cyberspace due to the fact that everything in cyberspace could possibly be recorded. Now it's possible you could be recorded as you're speaking on the phone as well, but it's far less likely and it's far easier to record everything through an online interaction. So think about the emails that you send to me. Think about if you instant message other people, you can copy and paste that instant messaging into a word processing program and save it. You can do a screenshot and capture a picture of your screen like I'm doing with this current lecture where I'm capturing screenshots of my PowerPoint presentation and narrating those. Think about that. Think about the idea that you might behave a little bit differently when you know that somebody's watching. We'll talk about that later when we get to the unit on privacy. So think about how the recording of everything in cyberspace may also affect how you might act in a physical place. We live today in the YouTube world. And so at any point in time, when you're anywhere in public, you could be being observed and being recorded. We've seen all types of cell phone videos of events that are happening that have been posted to YouTube. And pretty much if you're out of your house, there's no guarantee that you have that you're not being recorded. So now let's move on and think about our relationships that we have in cyberspace and what types of things can translate well in cyberspace and what types of things don't translate well in cyberspace. So our in-person versus our cyber relationships, think about our senses, the way we perceive the world, and think about how well each of them can be replicated in cyberspace and how we might go about that. So let's preview, of course, our five senses are sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. So if we think about how well each of them can be replicated in cyberspace, it can help us understand better how we interact in cyberspace and what things may be lacking in our virtual interactions that we don't have in our physical interactions that we have to make up for. So let's think about some visual stimuli that can be used in cyberspace. Obviously, we can use photos. We can post those online. We can use videos, much like I'm doing here with this particular PowerPoint. We can do text, which you also see on this PowerPoint. Even though it's being presented as a video, you're getting the text out of it. And think about the level of fidelity of these representations. Can you see a photo just as well on your computer screen as you can if you print it out or have Kodak print it for you? Yes, you can. Think about the digital cameras you have and uploading those picture files to your computer. Depending on how many megapixels you have, that picture is going to be about as good as you could possibly perceive. Same thing with videos. What we do need to think about with videos, though, is thinking about the videos for this course. Some of them are a little bit grainy due to technological limitations. Some of them you have to wait a while for them to buffer and load before you can watch, which is an inconvenience and can be a barrier for some people. If, however, you have a fast internet connection and you have a machine that can process the video quickly enough, then you can represent high-definition videos in cyberspace. As far as text goes as well, you can see that just as well online as you can in the printed page, although some people would beg to differ, and many people don't like to read books online or long things online because of the properties of the screen. So perhaps text is a little bit lacking in terms of the way we would like it presented. Now let's think about some audio stimuli that can be used in cyberspace. Well, can you hear me talking to you? You can. So you can hear voice in cyberspace, and depending again on how big of a file size you're willing to tolerate, you can get fidelity that's as good as possible through the voice or through things like music. We can download music through iTunes, and it's CD quality music, just as good as anything that we could hear on a physical medium that we purchased. Also, we can hear sounds. We can hear sounds just as well as through cyberspace as we can in the real world. So the level of fidelity of audio stimuli that can be used in cyberspace, I think we can agree, is just as good as anything that we could hear with the human ear based on how big your speakers are and how quality they are and how much you can afford in terms of technology. But you can replicate it exactly the same. How about taste? How can we experience taste through cyberspace? Well, there's only one way that we can do it. We can only come through other senses to experience taste. You can't taste these delicious French fries through cyberspace. We can only look at them and think about how they've tasted to us in the past. So we can use the visual sense of the crispy fries, or we could use the audio sense, like Pavlov's dogs responding to a bell and salivating. If there was audio that we had that would tempt us to salivate, perhaps a McDonald's jingle or something that brings that idea of food into our mind, it might stimulate our taste buds. How about another touch? How about smell? Smell is like taste, only through other stimuli. So we can see Pigpen here, and we can see all the different lines and dots coming off his body that indicate to us that he smells badly. But the only way that we can tell about smell is through other stimuli, so the visual representation of smell. Thinking about the sense of touch, how can that be represented in cyberspace? We may not think very well, but there are ways, and ways that are emerging daily, to allow tactile stimuli to come through cyberspace to us. So think about how you interact in cyberspace. Well, there's a tactile feel of the mouse, which is probably second nature to you and almost like an extra limb. There's the keyboard, where we can interact with people and tell the computer to do things through things like HTML coding. We can have a force feedback controller that rumbles when we're playing a video game and we go over a stretch of land that is rumbly or when we're being attacked. And the Nintendo Wii is the latest thing, where you think about the way the characters on screen respond to your movements. You have the controller and you wave it in the air like a baseball bat if you're playing baseball. You use a natural bowling motion to do bowling, or to work out, you can use the Wii Fit balance board and balance like you would in real life. So the idea of tactile stimuli being used through cyberspace is emerging each day. What would we say the fidelity of touch feedback in cyberspace is? It's still rough, but it's coming along. So now we've talked about the psychological features of cyberspace, and we've thought about the physical features of cyberspace and how we interact with those. We can continue to think about the ways that we experience life, both in physical places and in virtual spaces, and how things are different virtually and what we have to compensate for.